Is your selenite real or fake? How about Satin Spar Selenite? Is that real? My name is Sheila from Satin Crystals, and today we are going to discuss real selenites. But before we do, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss out on future crystal education videos. We are also going to discuss how to tell the difference between selenite and lookalikes like Calcite, Ulexite, Quartz, and Moonstone. So let's find out. First, what is selenite? So selenite is a crystallized version of a very soft stone called gypsum. And gypsum can crystallize in different ways. So one of the ways is this true selenite. The true selenite definition is that it is clear, it is very glassy, it is forming in very thin sheets, and it could also crystallize in a more abundant version of gypsum called Satin Spar. And this is more silky, satiny, fibrous version of gypsum. So selenite comes in different crystallized formations. It is very abundant, it is a very soft stone, and it is very easily obtainable. If you want to know in depth about selenite, just last week we created a selenite meanings video where you can find out all about its facts and metaphysical properties, and also answering your top 5 questions about selenite. So go back and check that video out if you have not yet. How can you tell if your selenite is real or fake? So first of all, lucky for us, we do not encounter much fake selenite out there because selenite is so abundant, it is so affordable, it's so easy to get that there's really no reason for anybody to fake selenite. Usually I tell people to, if they have a suspicious specimen, to send it into a certified gemological laboratory to make sure to know what they have. But for selenite, even beginners can tell because it is a very easy test. All you need to do is make sure that you can scratch the selenite with your fingernail. So all stones are measured on the Mohs scale of hardness, depending on how hard or soft they are. It goes from 1, which is very, very soft, like a talc, it's very powdery, all the way to 10, like a diamond, very, very hard. Selenite registers at a 2, so it is on the very soft side of the Mohs scale of hardness. Your fingernails register at 2.5, making them harder than selenite. So you can easily scratch your selenite and you'll just see a scratch on the surface, especially these raw pieces are very easy to see. If they are polished or coated like these beads, it's a little bit harder to scratch, but if you put a little pressure, you will see that you will create a scratch as well if it is real selenite. Another test is to distinguish between real selenite and glass is that to make sure there's no air bubbles within the stone. So real selenite will have inclusions and veins and all kinds of little minerals inside. Even if it is a very, very clear piece, you'll see that it is a natural stone. But it will never have air bubbles, which is an indication that it is definitely not selenite. Real selenite will flake off, it'll powder, it'll break apart in your hand when you are handling it. So this is just a natural part of using selenite in your practice. So you just have to be aware of that and be very careful when you are using selenite. Another test to distinguish between selenite and plastic is that selenite will not burn or melt, whereas plastic, if you put a hot needle to it, it'll melt, it'll have that gross plasticky smell that nobody likes. If you place the same needle on selenite, it won't have that effect. And lastly, selenite will dissolve in water after a prolonged period of time. So this is a test that we are actually doing here at Satin Crystals. We have some selenite sitting in water to see how long it will take and to see if this is an actual true test or not that we found. I don't know if it's going to take a few hours, a few days, a few years, but we will keep you updated. So make sure you are subscribed and you will see that video as well. So those are a few tests to tell if your selenite is real or fake. As I said, even for beginners, it is very easy to tell if you have real selenite or not. How do you tell true selenite from satin spar selenite? So that is the real question, because you don't really have to worry about fake selenites. You do want to know the distinction between true selenite and satin spar selenite, because satin spar selenite is a little bit more rare. It is a little bit more expensive. So you want to know the difference when you are buying the two. Now, one of the ways to distinguish the two is that true selenite is clear, it's colorless, it is like very glassy looking, whereas satin spar selenite is more opaque, it is more white, it also can come in these orangish, peachy yellow tones, whereas clear or true selenite is clear. However, it could also have some kind of mineral inclusions, like the piece I showed you before that was making the selenite look a little more gray, but the selenite itself is clear. True selenite forms in plates, in thin sheets, also known as window pane kind of pieces. As you can see, this little piece fell off of my selenite plate here, and it's just a very thin sheet here. Whereas satin spar selenite grows in fibrous lines. So you see the very tiny striations here. Each one of these is a crystallized gypsum in satin spar. So it's very different than the thin sheets of true selenite plates. And these little thin fibers can come apart as well. Satin spar is known as the fibrous version of gypsum rather than the platy version. You can also tell the difference between true selenite and satin spar selenite by how it looks. The clarity of true selenite is very glass-like, whereas satin spar selenite has that very iridescent cat's eye, like a dancing sheen on the surface. That is satin spar selenite. Is true selenite or satin spar selenite better for crystal healing? Now, this is a matter of personal preference. Some people prefer raw gemstones to polished stones in their practice. Selenite, both versions are very similar, and they have the same energy metaphysically. So it doesn't really matter which one, it just depends on which one you are more drawn to. If you want to use them both together, it'll make no difference at all. You can combine satin spar and true selenite and desert rose all in your practice. Great for sealing the aura, great for your crown chakra. If you want to know more about the metaphysical properties of selenite, make sure to go back and watch our meanings video, and you can also visit the article on our website with even more information about crystal healing with your selenite stones. How do you distinguish selenite from its lookalikes? For example, clear quartz you could confuse with true selenite because of the clarity. But as we mentioned, selenite is super soft. I can easily scratch this piece with my fingernail, whereas quartz is pretty hard at a 7 on the Mohs scale of hardness. So that is a very simple test. This is not going to be scratched very easily at all. That can eliminate clear quartz from selenite very easily. Now, sometimes people confuse white moonstones for a satin spar selenite because they both have a very distinct sheen on the surface. But when you look closely, you will see that moonstone's sheen is coming from within the stone. It is the minerals that are underneath the surface, whereas the satin spar selenite, it is shining with the light, is creating that effect. And of course, if in doubt, Moonstone is much harder than Selenite as well. It will not scratch very easily. It's more like a 6 or 7 on the Mohs scale of hardness, whereas Selenite is a 2. So that is very easy as well. Another lookalike stone is a clear calcite, and this one can trip you up a little bit because it is also a pretty soft stone registering at a 3. So theoretically you still cannot scratch it with your fingernail, but sometimes if it's in its rough form and it is a little crumbly, you can scratch it with your fingernail, and that could confuse you a little bit. But what calcite has, which selenite does not, is a double refraction. So an interesting thing to do is if you do have a clear piece of calcite, you can place it over some text and it'll divide the words into 2 and kind of look a little blurry, whereas selenite will not do this. Hopefully you can see it here on the video. If not, I have a picture of the different stones on top of text on our selenite meanings article as well. The stone that will most likely confuse you is Ulexite versus Satin Spar Selenite. And that is because Ulexite is very, very soft as well. It is a 2.5 on the Mohs scale of hardness versus the 2. And it also is a fiber optic stone, which sometimes when selenite is polished in a certain way can be fiber optic as well, meaning that when you place the stone on a text, it'll draw the words onto the surface of the stone. So both of these have been sold and known as TV stone because of this. But the true TV stone is Ulexite. Ulexite has a great fiber optic clarity, and it is also, when you look at the text in an angle, you can still see it, whereas if you place the selenite over text and you look at an angle, the words will have disappeared. I will give you a little example, so hopefully you'll be able to see it on the video, and if not, just head on over to our article and I will be able to show you better there. So we'll just take our little card, and if you place the Ulexite over it, you can see that the words kind of jump to the top of the stone, just like if you're watching TV where the images will be at the top of the screen there. So that is Ulexite, the TV stone. We also have some other ways to tell these two stones apart once you do go to the selenite real versus fake article on Satin Crystals. Now this piece of selenite is pretty thick, so it's a little bit harder to see the words. It does kind of reach out and grab those words to bring them to the forefront as well, but once you look at an angle, it is totally gone, whereas on selenite, you see the words and you look at an angle, it's still there. I think it's up to a 30-degree angle where you can see the text coming to the top of the stone. So Ulexite and selenite. I wanted to show you our little experiment with selenite in water. Let's see how long these guys take to disintegrate, if they ever do, who knows. But that is an upcoming video. Make sure you are subscribed and we'll see you in that one as well. Where can you buy your real selenite stones? So as always, we do recommend that you work with a reputable seller who knows what they're talking about. If they don't know the difference between Satin Spar and True Selenite, that is a red flag there. Make sure that you are paying for exactly what you are looking for. If you do need Satin Spar, True Selenite, Desert Rose, we have all of those on our Satin Crystals shop. So head on over there. While you are there, make sure to join the VIP club as we send out crystal healing information every single week. We also have an SMS program now, so just submit your number and we will text you out as well. As always, thank you for your positive energy here at Satin Crystals, and thank you for spreading your light into our worlds.